Chapter 9. You kids are going to get yourself killed. Ramik, ninth grade. What's today, my fine fellow? Said Ramik on stage, dressed as Scrooge in the Charles Dickens play A Christmas Carol. His hair and face had been powdered to make him look old, and he peered out of a stage window at another student who was dressed as a little boy. Today? Replied the boy. Why, it's Christmas Day. Ramik beamed, told the boy in his best old man stage voice to go and buy a turkey and deliver it, then danced around on the stage because he had been allowed to live after his visit with the spirits of Christmas past, present, and future. Ramik could feel the pleasure in the audience as mean old Scrooge was once again transformed. He knew he had the crowd under his spell. The play rolled to its conclusion, and Ramik shouted in a booming voice, as Tiny Tim has said many times, "God bless us, everyone." Everyone watching exploded in applause, and the curtain came down. It rose again quickly, and the members of the cast came forward for other curtain calls. For each character, Tiny Tim, the ghosts, and others in the play, the audience, made up mostly of University High students and their parents, applauded enthusiastically. Ramik, as the star of the show, came out last. The rest of the cast parted for him to come to the front of the stage and take his bows. He walked regally and with great dignity, bowed low to the audience, breathing deeply in the glory of the spotlight, the cheers, and the thunderous applause just for him. It doesn't get any better than this, Ramik said to himself. Although most students began the advanced academic program in the 7th grade, Ramik had transferred to University High School in the 9th grade. Usually, students had difficulty adjusting to the rigorous classes, especially if they had not attended university the first 2 years. But Ramik slid in easily and made good grades from the beginning. He even had time to audition for the school play. In a huge upset, because a certain student who had been at the school for years always got the lead, Ramik beat him out for the part with ease. "Good job, man," a 9th grader with braces named George said to him after the show. "Yeah, man, really tight," his friend Samson said. Ramik nodded, took the praise, and moved on. He had several classes with George and Samson, but they were just two more dudes in the hall. He purposely hadn't made many friends at this new school yet. Ramik had wanted to leave his friends in his old neighborhood to come to this school, but he liked the advanced math and science programs it offered, and he breezed through his classes with ease. So every day, as soon as class was out, he headed back to his old neighborhood to hang with his boys. Sometimes he would even skip classes at university to run with the boys from Plainfield. A couple of weeks later, Ramik found himself hanging out on the corner near Plainfield Elementary with his old friends, about 10 of them. "Glad you made it, man," a kid named Buki said. "Yeah, Ramik always comes through for us," a skinny boy named Marley added with appreciation. "What we gonna do today?" Buki asked. Sean, who had done time in juvenile detention, as had Marley, said with bravado, "We going down to Arlington Avenue and whip somebody's butt." Nobody asked why. It might have had something to do with a comment one of the Arlington boys had made earlier. It didn't really matter. They didn't need much reason to fight. Ramik and the others put their hands in their pockets and sauntered down the sidewalks of Plainfield, looking for trouble, looking for somebody to beat up. When they got to the bus stop, several of the Arlington Street boys yelled at them from cars driven by older kids, perhaps their older brothers. Ramik and his boys shouted back. Finally, Ramik said, "You think you so bad? Why don't you get out of them cars and do something?" The Arlington Street kids, about 10 of them, jumped out of their cars and proceeded to punch and roll with Ramik and the Plainfield boys. Everybody squared off with one person, and the brawl began. One kid, a big guy with missing teeth, threw a punch at Ramik, who ducked, then darted back up. swung hard, and popped the kid in his face. The boy fell to the ground, another tooth dangling from his already broken mouth. He jumped up then, anger and fire in his eyes, and began to chase Rumik and his friends. Just then, the city bus lumbered up to the stop, and the door opened. Rumik and his friends, anxious to get away in a hurry, jumped on the bus. It pulled away in a hiss of exhaust fumes. "Whew, that was close," Rumik said, rubbing his fist. Punching that kid in the mouth had cut and bruised the back of his hand. "It ain't over yet," Marley said. "They're getting in their cars and chasing the bus." Rumik peered out of the bus window. Sure enough, the Arlington boys, looking angry enough to kill, were speeding behind the bus, which was pulling up to its next stop. Bookie ran to the front of the bus and begged the bus driver, "Man, you can't let them kids on the bus. They gonna kill us." The bus driver, angry that these kids he considered to be hoodlums were using his bus as part of their fight, retorted, "I'm not allowed to refuse anyone a ride on this bus. You kids take your fights and your foolishness elsewhere. You're endangering hard-working folks who just want to get home from work." The bus lumbered to a stop. The door opened. The kid that Rumik had punched in the mouth was the first aboard. He waved a $50 bill. "This is for me and my 15 buddies," he said defiantly to the bus driver. The driver looked at what was becoming a dangerous situation and said, "I don't have a change for a 50, son." The boy just said, "Keep the change. I don't want to ride your bus anyway. I want these punks you got riding on it." He grabbed Marley and tried to pull him off the bus, but Marley held on as tight as he could to the bus pole. Rumik and Bookie and the others pulled Marley's legs and got him back. The Arlington boy jumped off the bus then, and the bus sped off. Rumik and the others sat quietly, trying to catch their breath and wondering what would happen when the bus reached the end of the line. The Arlington boys continued to follow the bus in their cars, patiently waiting for revenge. By the time it reached the end of the line, no one was left on the bus except for Rumik and his friends. The Arlington boys were still right behind them. "If we can make it to my friend Dre's house, we'll be safe. He lives 2 blocks from here," Rumik suggested. "We better be doing some flying," Bookie said. "You boys are on your own now," the bus driver said. "Don't you have anything better to do?" he asked. "You kids are going to get yourself killed." Rumik thanked the driver for trying to help, but he and his friends had no choice but to walk down the steps of the bus and hope they could make it to Dre's house in time. They left the bus, feet flying, and ran as fast as they could, through yards, over fences, and behind trees as the Arlington gang chased them down the streets. Just as they got to Dre's house, Rumik heard a loud series of sharp explosions. Gunfire. He and his friends rolled to the porch and huddled in a corner. The Arlington boys, screaming obscenities, sped away in their cars. Sitting up slowly, Rumik could see clearly several bullet holes in the wood of the front porch. He breathed deeply, immensely relieved that he would live another day. He wondered where his life was heading and how he could manage to escape what seemed to be an increasingly downward spiral. He had no answers. A conversation with Dr. Rumik Hunt, The Call of the Streets. People often say you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. I beg to differ, at least in the community where I grew up. There, it was very difficult to pick your friends as well. We forged bonds with those who lived around us. We had no other choice. Unfortunately, there was a lot of negative peer pressure in my neighborhood, so much so that it became the norm to do the wrong thing instead of the right thing. It was what your peers expected of you. If you didn't conform, you might be labeled not cool. When I was a teenager, I often found myself getting involved in dangerous and foolish activities just so I'd fit in with those around me. I did a lot of things my gut told me I shouldn't do, things I really didn't want to do. That's why I think it's important to talk about these issues. Getting good grades and staying out of trouble are really cool and really, really smart. It also makes you a leader, and that's cool too. Take it from me, I know. Why? Because I was a follower. Most of my friends were as well. It wasn't until I met Sam and George that I knew what positive peer pressure was all about. It took me some time to get it together, but when I did, it was the most